Welcome to our webinar with Loren Fogelman. It is 5 steps to increase your accounting business, 5x increase in profitability by working with law firms. So this is our third in the series today, or could be our fourth, and Loren is joining me here. I'm going to just kind of introduce what the topic is today and go through a few announcements, and then we're going to get into the heart of our presentation. So here's our agenda. Today's conversation is going to be confidently answering what's your hourly rate question. The idea that taking this question and getting a response to it. I'm going to walk through a few other highlights here on specific to the LeanLaw Accounting Pro meetup. We have that coming up Wednesday, June 16th. The topic will be how to find the right clients for your practice. Something changing with our sort of tone in our meetups is that we really keep hearing this help us market better. So we're wanting to shift the focus of those meetups to be marketing oriented. Of course, there'll be some product as well. Speaking of LeanLaw Accounting Pro program updates, our new search directory, so our new profile directory will be live June 1st. LeanLaw has been working diligently with our outside production company to revamp the entire search engine and the way we present our LeanLaw Accounting Pros to the community, and that's going to be live by June 1st. We're very excited about that. To remind everyone that we do have our learning management system content, that's our accreditation system, is live, and it's ready for your accreditation if you don't have it. So please engage us and learn about LeanLaw. And then lastly, we've initiated a effort inside of LeanLaw to begin to explore community management. So we have sort of new leadership in the LeanLaw accounting program, and one of the tenets is this community. So we have very intentional efforts to build that community, and this is one component of it. Last thing, and the LeanLaw updates as a company, we have a LeanLaw masterclass. I linked to that masterclass. This is our monthly LeanLaw masterclass, which goes over our CTO and head of customer success, review specific functionality in LeanLaw and kind of talk about how to master that actual utility within LeanLaw. The last one was specific to expenses, and again, a link in the chat to that. That webinar is live. And lastly, just a little note on the company. We're entering and headed into a financing round. So it's really good news. We're growing. We've hit some major thresholds in our revenue. We're getting ready to go to that next threshold of growth. Really what that means, and I threw this slide in, is this is a really messy slide and it's meant more for an investor presentation, but what I really want you folks to hear is that LeanLaw, our creativity, our sort of innovation comes around 3 tenets of automation, integration, and data. And timekeeping and billing as a platform is certainly the lead into it. People want to switch timekeeping and billing tools, but we see other opportunities to enhance this concept of what we're now calling the law firm's financial operating system. That's how we position ourselves in the market. We're not just a timekeeping and billing tool. We see ourselves as an operating system where the law firm can manage that full life cycle of a client. And in here, you see some new products that are staged to come out. Some of these are in the product and will be shaped into new products with more features enhanced, but they all come around automation, integration, and data as a synergy to create solutions around very specific things like contingency settlements or compensation tracking. We see some opportunities with staff management with payroll, and not necessarily doing payroll, but doing, managing time and PTO and overtime and things like that. So we're very excited about where LeanLaw is headed, and this investment is going to go into 2 fronts. One is to, of course, develop these products. 2 is engineering. One of the beasts of LeanLaw is that we are not able to, quite get all the features we want in, and so we're going to double down and grow our engineering team by 3-fold over the next 18 months. That's going to see an acceleration and an increased velocity around product development, product features, not just in the core product, but in these new products that will be very specific around really core pain points in law firms and other professional services. So lots of exciting stuff happening for LeanLaw at the company level. Okay, we talked about what we're here for, which is our 5-part webinar series. This is this is the third one, Loren. We're really rolling here. And it's highlighted there, what's your hourly rate question. Now, we did 2 others. And again, in the chat, I link to a blog post at LeanLaw that has all of these outlined with video recaps of the previous webinars. So that link is in the chat. It's called, here's the schedule for the past and future Fogelman webinars. You can see we'll be doing another one July 8th on boost your revenues. July 9th, 5 steps to packaging your services. And Loren is giving us a bonus late year, which is your strategic plan for 2022. So helping us plan for the year ahead. So we encourage everyone to engage and connect with us on that. So I'm going to kick it off, and we're going to just say that here's our 2 speakers. And Loren, just before we get into this, just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be this strategic accounting coach.
Sure. Basically, I'm a sports psychologist turned business coach. What I have seen is there's a lot of similarities between the 2 of them. And then some of the differences is that really athletes get trained and outside mentors, trainers, coaches from the very beginning, even when they're peewees, whereas accounting professionals tend to be a little bit more independent. We like to think things through on our own. We don't like asking for help. So we can go ahead and achieve what we want, but sometimes it takes a little bit longer because we tend to do it ourselves instead of ask for outside help to be able to fast track our results. The other thing is from 2018 to 2021, I have been listed as one of the top 22 business coaches on HubSpot, and am happy to be on that list. And really my place is to serve accounting professionals and helping them to really increase their income without feeling like a slave to their business.
Yeah, and I'll vouch for Loren as a business coach, in that I've made some introductions and seen some wonderful outcomes from her coaching with other accounting folks that are in our ecosystem. So I'm going to launch a quick poll before we get started into the program, just to kind of get a sense of who's here and what's going on. So there's 3 quick questions I'd like the group to answer. Have you ever attended a Fogelman LeanLaw webinar? Do you currently work with law clients and are you part of our program? So we'll just give about 30, 45 seconds. We'd like to get some participation from the group. And then I'll close the poll. And I remembered to do the poll, so that's good. Okay, I'm gonna end the polling. So thanks everyone for doing that. The majority of you have visited us before, and so that's good news. So let me pull this over, Loren. I wanted to kind of, before we dive into today's topic, just pull the lens back and ask you, when you put together and shaped this 5-part series, what was the mission statement? What was the overall theme of where you're trying to, bring this accounting professional from where they are to where they need to go? Could you kind of give us the big picture, and then we'll come down into how this topic fits into that?
Well, the overview of the entire series that you and I have crafted, Jonathan, is really about how to be able to grow your accounting practice by 5x without feeling like you're a slave to your business, without having to sacrifice other parts of your personal life in order to grow your practice and earn more money. And basically it comes from the fact that accounting professionals are very, very service oriented. They really make a difference for their clients, but they don't always have the business insights to be able to create a practice that serves their lifestyle as well. And so this is really about how to be able to have that profitable accounting practice without feeling like a slave to your business. Regarding today, basically, I wanted to touch on something that is one of the first questions you get from a potential new client. I recently learned that the term is a PNC from Karen Anderson, who's joining us today. A PNC is a potential new client. And basically one of the first questions is, what's your hourly rate? And I wanted to be able to really unpack that and what's behind that and how to be able to confidently respond to that in order to really lead them in the right direction, because actually just talking about your hourly rate isn't really going to be meaningful to them or to you in the way that you think it is. So how to be able to prepare for that answer and have some sound bites readily available.
So, and it's such a charged topic, right? And I won't get, I don't want to slip into some of the minutia, but it's like, it's emotional, it's business, it's just so, it's so multidimensional. So before I get into this question, I want to ask another poll. So I'm going to launch one quickly just to learn how folks are today positioning themselves with their pricing. So how do you charge your clients? We're asking the group to do that poll. Okay, we've got about a third of the people who have voted. I'll let it go for another 10 seconds or so. Okay, so I'm going to actually read the results because I think they're material to the conversation. 22% of the group actually does hourly billing. So they do exclusively hourly billing. 11% do flat fee. 44% do value-based pricing, and the remaining 22% do a combination. So it's really a blend there. So Lauren, a lot of this is as we talked about, this is a very complex topic. So what's the most common first question for potential clients, meaning for your potential clients, when they say, what's your hourly rate?
Basically, what I see is that most of us hear that as the first question. It's a way to maybe open up a conversation, get started with someone who might be interested in working with you. But the main thing is that I want you to be in charge of how that process works, instead of just having a knee-jerk reaction because someone asked you a question. You think that you need to go ahead and blurt out your fees. Doing it too soon just actually works against you. And I'm just going to continue with part of my sound bites from the next part of the question. Is that okay, Jonathan?
Sure.
It just flows right into that. But basically, what I want to say is that most of us, we've been trained to ask what an hourly price is, and that isn't really what they want to know. It's really a hollow question. It doesn't really give them the information that they want because it's without context. And I want to be able to explain what that means. Let's talk about Susan, who just left her 9 to 5. She opened up a bookkeeping practice. She is excited that she set $50 as her hourly rate. And compared to what she was making before, $50 is a lot to her. But she also is accepting everybody who's willing to pay her fees. She has some perfectionist tendencies, which tend to slow her down, like double and triple checking things. And therefore, the hourly monthly bill for a client is about $300. Now, Dave, he's a seasoned pro. He has been doing this for 7 years or so. He left corporate to open up his own bookkeeping firm, and he's continued to add apps and technologies such as LeanLaw into what he's doing. As a result of that, he's very, very efficient. Now, Dave's rate, unlike Susan's, is $75 an hour, but he combines experience as well as technology. Therefore, he is very, very efficient. And for him, the same person that was paying $300 a month, because let's say it takes Susan 6 hours to complete the work for a client, he's able to do in half the time. So his $75 an hour rate would only mean that that client is paying $225 a month, whereas they would be paying Susan $300 a month. So even though he has an hourly rate of $75, where Susan is $50, a client would be paying him less because he has more experience, he's using technology that she's not, and that he's just more efficient. So once again, this means that just sharing an hourly rate doesn't really give them all the information they need, and they're making a judgment that is not going to actually be in their best interest or your best interest. That's why we're really going into this today about not wanting to just quickly respond with your hourly rate, because you could be charging more, but you could be very efficient, and your actual bill for that client would be less than someone who has a lower rate, but might be slower at what they do.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that while this is very material to this audience, many of these folks want to service law firms. And there's something interesting about helping law firms understand how to price and work with what they do. And I know many times the law firm doesn't see necessarily the accounting person as someone they might go to, but it's actually a real conversation to understand the mechanics of profitability and how much time they're putting into a matter and how much time they're writing down to get at some of the underlying factors to help the law firm and the lawyer in particular set the rates. I mean, ultimately there's some market and some experience and things like that, but many times it's, from the law firm perspective, it's this sort of subjective, I'm 300, so I'll get to 350 and then I'll get to 400. And to your point, Loren, they don't have a logic to it. There's no data behind it. So it's not just a problem you can solve for yourself. It's a problem that you can understand and help those client better position their pricing out into the market as well. And I know that's a little off topic, but
no.
related.
I'm going to actually respond to that really quickly. First of all, maybe they wedded to it because the hourly rate and the billable hour was created by an attorney to justify his fees about 100 years ago. So It wasn't really based on logic. It was just a way to justify fees. And now it's something that is global. But the other thing is that I see an hourly rate kind of like a dinosaur. It's like still using a dial-up phone when you could be using your smartphone. So we need to get pricing up to 2.0.
This kind of that's a nice segue to my next question, because it always comes up, and I think it has different meanings. But from your perspective, what does value-based pricing mean?
Basically, value pricing is how you come to your final fee. Now, most of the time, as practitioners, we're looking what is valuable to us, which is our time as well as our costs, and that's how we usually come up with a fixed fee or an hourly rate. However, value pricing prices the client, not your service. So basically, what you really want to do is step into your client's shoes and look at what is the value of your service from their perspective. And the bottom line, or the essence of value client, is that they need to believe that what they have to gain from working with you is greater than the fees that they're paying you. Yeah. I'll just say that one more time, Jonathan. A client needs to be able to understand that what they have to gain from working with you is greater than the fees that they're paying you. And that is the essence of value pricing.
Yeah, and sometimes I would imagine it's quantitative. You reduced my AR by X. You helped me manage my finances by Y. But I think sometimes I wonder if it's subjective, like, boy, I'm getting so much insight. Like LeanLaw had just engaged an outside accounting firm for our business that is specifically focused on SaaS-based companies, and it has a management consultant side. And I can see it's a lot. It's more money than we've ever spent. And we were a little shy to do it, but they talked about, where they can take us. And now that we've worked with them for 3 months, it's like the best money ever spent. Because it's not necessarily the task that they did for us, although there's some tangible benefits. It's the relationship and the intellect they're bringing to the conversation and the commitment they brought, that now I see an enormous value. Like, I would double the expense to get this type of service that we're offering. And so, but they do a mix. They do some hourly billing. So it's interesting. Maybe we should have this conversation with them. So even if you want to raise rates, there's just this, I would think, and I've done this in my own services background, this sort of inner resistance, like this idea. And the example I'll give about raising rates, the emotional side, and I'll give you an example. LeanLaw has raised their rates twice in the tenure of the company, and I'm out selling. And in both instances, I'm the one who, in my intellectual mind, said, okay, I understand it, but I'm the one sort of fighting it because I have to go out and sell it. And I remember that sort of tension in there. So, what are some of the roadblocks that people have in raising rates, and how they deal with that?
Well, it's usually the business owner. We're our own best roadblock. We're the bottleneck. And basically, a lot of times I've seen that rates tend to be a reflection of your self-worth. And that if you don't value what you're doing for your clients, then your clients won't value it either. So that's the main thing. But some of the things that come up is you wonder if you're going to be gouging your clients. We actually just had this very conversation yesterday in my business coaching group with the county professionals I work closely with, is we talked about the whole thing about mindset and gouging and not wanting to outprice the clients. The other thing is that you get afraid that maybe you won't be able to bring on new clients if you raise your rates, or your old clients can't afford your rates, or you get into their books and you see what their cash flow is and you start to feel sorry for them. So you lower your rates because you know what their cash flow is like, instead of doing what you just did with the accounting firm that focuses on SaaS, is you go ahead and make a big investment knowing that you have more to gain on the long run because you're now working with someone that has expertise in your area. And then the other thing that comes up is when you're in a conversation with someone who's looking to work with you and you share your new rates, and then there's some silence. You quickly blurt out a discount because you want to break the silence. And that is something that happens all too often, is you weren't even asked for a discount and you offer one anyway because the silence just makes you squirm inside.
Yeah, I can attest to something that happened recently in our world. So LeanLaw put out a bid for the largest client we would ever potentially onboarded. And it's going to end up being, and I hope we win it, over 100 users in one law firm. It's a really large law firm. And part of that, I was looking at the onboarding piece for LeanLaw, which we just historically had sort of just said, well, it's a cost. We just want to break even. We don't want to make any money on it. We just want it to be there because we have to do it. We charge an onboarding to help them onboard and that. And in this client, I quadrupled the cost. I just felt we were underdoing it. And I remember the anxiety. It wasn't a conversation. The anxiety I was before the enter button. And I just in my head had to say, it's not that much money to, I mean, I'm literally walking through it in my head. And what happened was, yeah, they asked for a little bit of a discount. So I gave them a little bit of a discount on the price, but it was still 3x over anything we've ever charged on onboarding before. And it was really just me making a decision that the value of what we were offering in onboarding was being undercharged, and I needed to come up with a new number. And there was no real, it's very different, and there was no real science to it. Probably should be, but there wasn't. But it was a really emotional interaction. So getting it forward. So you mentioned that there's sort of some science to the customer, meaning the accountant's customer, asking that the first question in their mouth is sort of like, so what's your hourly rate? There's some like sociology behind it. There's some science behind it. So will you unpack that a little bit and tell us what that sort of mindset is?
Well, basically, when you are asked about an hourly rate and you give them one, then you're first of all being positioned as a cost as opposed to an investment. They now are comparing your rate to everybody else's rate that they've talked about or what they feel it ought to be, instead of focusing on the outcomes and the benefits. As you mentioned, with accounting professionals that specialize in the legal field, you have deeper knowledge about the specific needs of accounting firms, and that has a lot of value. It has nothing to do with an hourly rate. So once again, it sees you as a cost instead of an investment. And as a result of that, what happens is, according to neuroscience, how our brains work is we compare. Once you give your hourly rate, they start comparing you to, like I said, everybody else. But the thing that I've discovered is that's actually not the question that they really want to ask when they blurt, what's your hourly rate? What's going on? And what they really want to know in the back of their mind, and they just don't know to ask it or to put the words to it, is they want to know if you possess the skill set to do the work that they're hiring you for. And if you can be promised, if you can be trusted to deliver on your promise. So that's what they really want to know. Do you possess the skill set, and can you be trusted to deliver on your promise? And that is more important actually when they're making a decision to work with you than just your hourly rate.
Yeah, I mean, competency and trust is really fundamental. And I will tell you this, lawyers and law firms sometimes act frugal, but in general, they're not. They are professional services purveyors, and they respect high quality professional services purveyors and recognize inherently in them that they're expensive is there some someone's got some noise in the background. What they know, and this is the psychology that's going into it, they respect an upmarket service professional because they see themselves as an upmarket service professional. And if you present yourself in a commodity way, like when LeanLaw gets into, some client starts talking to us about, well, what's your price against another vendor? I'm like, we're well priced. We're not the most expensive. We're not the least, but that's not the whole story. I mean, I really don't even have a discussion about discounting our rates, because I think that that's the wrong conversation to have, and it will tend to be the wrong client. And so we get very little, like this client, this 100-person client, they didn't ask for any discounts on the pricing. They just wanted a little something there. Linda, I want to make a comment. Linda Artesani, hi, Linda. She said in the chat, never discount, exclamation point, never. But if asked, reduce the scope, thereby lowering the fees. They usually turn around if they want all the goodies. So she's saying her tactics are never discount, just change the scope of it. And maybe that tactic will work for other folks. So, but I really want folks to know when interacting with lawyers, they really respect someone presenting the value and the benefit to them, because they want to get to that that idea of competency and trust.
I want to say one other thing on that also, Jonathan, is that a lot of attorneys are poker players. And especially when it comes to the sales part. Okay, you're already smiling and laughing at me. So basically what happens is that they feel that it doesn't hurt to ask because they might be able to save a couple of dollars. So they ask, but they actually see the full value of what you're offering. And if you don't cave in to the pressure of responding to that discount with a yes, because you don't like saying no to people, or you're concerned about being judged or possibly losing a client, they will pay your full fee. But recognize that attorneys are great poker players. They have gone through many years of schooling to be able to have that poker face. Yeah. And they use it to their advantage. So as Linda was saying, do not cave in, stand by it. It might be uncomfortable on your part, but you play poker also. And really just stand by your rates, but you have to first connect to your value in order to be able to do that.
Well, and I want to make one more subtlety about lawyers, because we've talked about this in previous webinars, but it's something that's really important to learn. Now, there's a huge broad spectrum of attorneys. So if you're working with a estate planner, they're not poker players. They're people who are like really care, like family law and estate planning. Those are people who have big hearts and they're working in that space. Litigators are poker players. Anyone doing personal injury litigation, those guys are different. And but the one thing that of the lawyer personality is that they're trained to be very methodical in how they ask questions. And sometimes they will ask questions in a way that are probing and uncomfortable and almost feeling like you're being deposed. I've had this with LeanLaw. I've literally had a conversation where I feel like I'm being deposed by an attorney, and it's off-putting because you're like, why? It's a tough conversation, and the most important thing to recognize is that's just how their brain is working. It's how they analyze information. It has nothing to do with you as an accounting professional, although you should be able to articulate your value to them and what you do and how you do it and the value of it. But it's just how they work, and you can't get caught up in how they're asking the question and think, oh, this is really a bad person or a tough person. It's just their mindset and how they were trained from school to look and not fully trust the data. They have to look behind the data to make sure that what is being said is accurate. Okay, let's get to the next question. So, Loren, you talk about this. There's this sort of innate need to compare. How does the need to compare work when it comes to hiring an accounting firm? How does that compare to other decisions someone might make?
Right. As I mentioned, when someone is thinking about working with you, they are considering three primary things, which I'm not going to fully get into today, but they're looking at price, they're looking at the client relationship that you have with them, and they're looking at whether you possess the skill set to be able to follow through on what you deliver. When you are meeting with someone who is looking at your services as a commodity, they don't really value you and what you're doing. They're just looking for the functions, or they tend to be price sensitive. They'll go ahead and put price first. The majority of other people that are looking to work with you will actually consider the client relationship and your skill set and expertise before they'll consider price when looking to move forward. But the main thing is that they had to compare. And we all had to do that. It is how our brains are wired when we're making decisions. Therefore, I really talk about creating packages, and therefore you offer them options, and their decision then is how to work with you, as opposed to if to work with you or to move on and go in another direction. When you're looking at packages, it's similar to buying a car or driving a car. When you're on the freeway and you look around you, there's going to be a whole range of cars there. Not everybody is driving the same car because we all have different wants, needs, and desires. Some people will be driving a Geo Metro because they just want the basics. And then the majority of people will be driving some type of mid-sized car, maybe like a Volvo, because they want safety, they want some of the amenities, they possibly want seat warmers. And then there's going to be your high-end or premium luxury car drivers, and they might be driving a Tesla because it says something about them. It has status, it has a very certain type of driving experience, and they might care about the environment as well. Well, your clients fit into those three categories also. They are going to be some people that are Geo Metro drivers that just want the basics as far as your accounting services go, whether they're a startup or a solo law firm. The majority of clients will fit into that mid-range where they need a certain level of services, and maybe there's some additional things that you might add in. And then you're going to have some premium clients that are going to want to have additional access, maybe additional reports or insights, more quicker turnaround time and responses when they have questions, and they want to always be the priority. They always go first class with everything. And therefore, you want to be able to start offering these options. So once again, they're deciding how to work with you, not if to work with you. And the other thing is that if you don't like tracking your time and you want to be able to offer a fixed fee, this solves that problem. You no longer have to track your time. You don't have to spend, the hours you do on creating an invoice and possibly chasing money or writing things off because you didn't get paid for work. This solves that problem of invoicing, billing, and it also gives them an option of how to be able to move forward and work with you.
I want 3 comments on this. Number one, Loren mentioned packages, and by the way, September 9th, 5 steps to package your services for the legal niche. So September 9th, if you want to learn more about packages, we're going to do a whole webinar on it, September 9th. So just to remind you. Secondly, speaking to the whole idea of packaging, it's not quite the same thing, but at LeanLaw, kind of share what we did. We, in April of last year, created a pro product versus a core product. And we did that because we had all customers didn't need the same service. And we as a company wanted to focus on those customers that wanted more features and were mid-market and were more sophisticated. Well, the first step to doing that was giving them a specific product, i.e. a package that they could buy into, and segmenting out different users that needed a lighter version of LeanLaw. We call it core. And that was very, how do I say it? It brought great clarity. Because as a company, we're saying, okay, here's our core audience, here's tactics and tools that we need to support them, which are totally different. The core is lighter, self-serve, more automated in terms of their interaction. Here's our pro product. Oh, it's more white glove, it's more high service, it's more sophisticated. And so LeanLaw presented itself in 2 different ways, and it actually helped us as a company be more organized in terms of where we wanted to focus our client base. So that's number one. Number 2 is I want to just kind of push back a little on one thing you said about time tracking and qualify it a little, because this is with law firms.
Yep.
I think, yes, tracking time is a pain in the butt and no one wants to do it. But in a service-based organization, you never really understand your full cost of your cost per client and how you're interacting with your client unless you have some way to track time or some way to understand what went into it. So for contingency firms, contingency law firms, you'll see this. All small contingency firms, meaning there's one principal or two principal contingent attorneys and there's a bunch of worker bees, never track time. They won't do it. Every large contingent firm, everyone tracks time. Why? Larger organizations are better at understanding cost and understanding what went into a particular matter. They get a lump sum at the end, but they have to understand not just what expenses the law firm incurred on behalf of the client to win the case or matter or settle it, but they had to understand the load of time. And the only way to understand that cost is to track some time. So the difference is, if you don't want to track your time from a billing purposes, absolutely. But it doesn't, I don't think, divorce you completely from tracking time in properly running your business. And, you know, it doesn't have to be down to the 16th of an, or the 10th of an hour, 6-minute increment. But we in LeanLaw are struggling with that same thing about saying, well, where are we spending our energies? You know, are we doing it with our mid-market clients, our micro clients? And the only way we can get at that is looking at time. It's the only way we can understand where our resources are going. So I just wanted to push back on that and say, I wouldn't encourage anyone from divorcing themselves from time tracking. I would just not make it a function of how you charge for your services or exclusively. Anyways, I know that's a little contradictory to what you were saying.
No. But you know what? This is all information and people pick and choose what works best for them. Some people continue to track time, whether they're doing value pricing or not. Some people never track time even when they were invoicing. And it becomes a pain later on when they have to invoice and then go back and try to recreate everything. So it's a whole other conversation, but we're just putting different things out there, and then people need to pick and choose.
So a few things. Elizabeth Rogers said when we were talking about asking for the discount, and I know Elizabeth well, she's my wife, if the crowd doesn't know that, she says, I always ask for the discount and figure she can still pay, which is always a point of our interactions. Like, really, you're asking for a discount? She's like, why not? They can always not give it. Anyways, and I appreciate her tenacity there. Lorette is talking about tracking time, and she says they track time to manage the key KPIs for the firm. Karen says we track time for the first few months in taking on a client just to measure the profitability. So that's an interesting tactic at the front end to see what that load. It also tells you, I would imagine, how efficient you're getting at onloading or onboarding clients. And then Karen goes back and says, we do track, oh, I guess that repeated itself. There were two messages there. So as to your point, there's a lot of different tactics with tracking time, to the full load, to maybe a certain segment, and looking at that for different reasons. All right, we've got a poll.
Yep.
Here comes a poll. All right, so this is, do you communicate the value in sales and marketing? And be honest here, be truthfully honest. Are you really talking about value, or are you talking about what you do and how you do it? Okay, another few minutes and then we'll end this.
Minutes? How about seconds?
Seconds, sorry, thank you.
Jonathan, you are welcome to push back anytime you want to.
I know that. So thank you for saying it. We've done this enough that there's good interaction. So the question, how do you communicate the value of sales and marketing? And the answer came back, 38%, it's something I struggle with. 60%, 63% said there's room for improvement. So, and no one, 0 said they've mastered it. And I don't think anyone, it's very difficult to master it. And it's really the 80-20 rule. You know, if you could do it 20% better, you're probably getting 80% there. But maybe not. So we've talked a lot about, you know, all of the kind of complexity of the question, what's your hourly rate? So what if, you know, so how do you respond to it? What if they don't have an hourly rate? Like, so how do you coach people to respond to that question?
I actually am going to share 4 steps on what to do. The very first thing you want to do is decide ahead of time how you want to answer that question. You might respond by saying, well, let's first talk about what you need. Or you might say, I offer a complimentary consultation first to find out exactly what your needs are and if I might be of service to you. That's the very first thing, is decide how you want to respond to that question. And then if it's someone that you want to talk further with, go ahead and get something scheduled on the calendar. That's step 1. Step number 2 is, now that you're meeting with them, you want to ask great questions during the consultation. It's what I call a value conversation instead of having a sales conversation. You're focusing on them. You want to ask them things about, what do you want to achieve? Where are things now in your business? What are some of the obstacles and bottlenecks that you're currently experiencing? What's possible once you fix this problem? And this way, you're really getting an idea as to who they are, their sense of what's important to them, whether you feel like they're a fit and you want to be able to help them. Maybe they're saying some things that make the hairs on the back of your neck stand up and you're getting some red flags. But this gives you insights into who you would be working with as a potential client and focusing on what's important to them. So that is the the second part of it, is asking great questions. And if you find that they're just looking to pick your brain or some low-cost solutions, I'm just going to say right now, let them go. Don't continue to move forward with them, because if they're price sensitive right in the beginning, they will probably be questioning everything as you continue moving forward with them. You don't have to tolerate a price sensitive clients. They're actually going to lower your profits. Step number 3 is, as you are listening to their answers to your questions and hearing about what it is that they want to achieve, you want to then do what I call connect the dots. This is where you show them what your solution is to help them achieve those future focused desires that they have, the KPIs, the key performance indicators, what their goals are regarding revenues and profitabilities. But you're listening to their answers, and then you're connecting the dots, showing them how you have those solutions that will help them to move forward. The trick here is you don't want to overwhelm them with too much detail. They don't understand accounting and bookkeeping to the degree that you do. They probably don't geek out on it to the degree that you do. So going too much into the various different types of reports and analyses and all these other things is going to cause them to get overwhelmed. Their eyes might start to glaze over. They'll be fidgeting, wanting to look at their phone instead and break eye contact with you when you start to go into the details too much. So you want to give them an overview of how you can solve it, but you don't need to go heavy into the details. That actually could kill a potential new client signing on with you. Number 4 is you want to then discuss the various options and prices of how to be able to move forward. As we've been saying, don't give just one option. You want to give them those 3 options with the various price points. And when you're discussing them, you want to focus on what is the outcome, what is the benefit of the 3 different price points or packages that you're offering, because the outcome and the benefits is actually more important to them than the nitty-gritty tactical steps.
So I want to share a few things that happens in LeanLaw land, because we have this community, when they're interacting with law firms, has a very similar conversation when we do LeanLaw. And many times they're overhauling their accounting system and even potentially bringing in new accounting professionals. And so the first thing I ask in a sales call is, why are they here? And I ask them to tell me, what's motivating them to be in the meeting. I ask them, what pain points they are. I ask them what's working. So I want to get a sense of, functionally, because I can't have a conversation if I don't understand how to do that. And most of the time, folks are pretty revealing. And those clients that are going to be good clients are actually pretty truthful and interactive in that question. The second thing, I come back into your point about trying not to overwhelm them. It's very difficult to show a product and not overwhelm them. But what I do is focus on the things that are most high value relative to those pain points. So I've listened in the first part of the conversation. So for us, many times it's showing reporting and showing how we can do compensation tracking. And I would give this tip to the group. One of the key questions to ask in an interview with an attorney in a law firm is what data and specifically what reports are meaningful to them, and how do they interact with them and how do they use it. It's very revealing in understanding the personality of the attorney and the decision maker to say, what do they do? They might just say, well, I look at a profit and loss. And sometimes it's very superficial. Other times it's really specific and important. And so asking about reporting and what frequency and what reports, and then backing out and saying, how do you guys get to these reports, is very, very revealing to the overall accounting operations of the law firm. And so I'm on the front end. You're smiling, Loren. Well, I'll get to your smile anyway. So that's just one little tip that I get in interacting with law firms and lawyers, is talking about reporting and data, which is the outcome and value of all these processes, or one of the outcomes and values of all these processes. And it's the leverage point of where you can come in and say, okay, where are you and where do you want to go? And so that's kind of the heart of what we kind of probe around in our sales calls, to get into sort of an upmarket conversation with them, right? We're not talking about this is how you do time tracking, or this is how you write an invoice, although sometimes we have to do that because that's what they want to look at. Okay, you're smiling. Is there something behind your smile there, Loren?
I'm just anticipating our next move.
Okay. So what if that person that you're interacting with just insists upon, like, I get your value pricing, it's just like almost dismissing all your conversations, says, but what's the hourly rate? Like, what if you feel that tension, like they always seem to come back and trying to probe around to get at that hourly rate?
This is where you want to be direct. Let them know you don't offer an hourly rate. What you do offer is a consultation. And if it's a fit, you'll discuss the next options of how that would work. If not, you just bless them and let them move on.
Okay.
And so we have someone that we wanted to bring on also at this point, Jonathan.
Okay, yeah, let's leave some time for that. I want to make sure. Linda, excuse me, not Linda, Karen, your mic is on, isn't it? No, you're not. Let's.
Not yet.
Okay, there you are. I just asked you to unmute. So Karen Anderson is a part of our LeanLaw community. She's part of Loren's world. And we figured we'd just have a little quick question and let Loren kind of interview her, because she went through this whole process just recently. And I figured it would be insightful in the last sort of 5-10 minutes to go through some questions with her. So Loren, I'll let you lead this.
Okay, Karen, first of all, I just want to say thanks for hopping on this chat with us today. Basically, I wanted to know, what was your practice like before you started value pricing your services?
Overworked and underpaid.
That sums it up.
Yeah.
Anything else that you found regarding your services and what was different before you started going through this transformation and process?
Yeah, I mean, I think we used to do hourly rates, and then we also did fixed fees. And I kind of found with the fixed fees, the way we used to base that pricing was on transactional and not based on the results that we were bringing to the client. And then on the hourly, it was kind of like y'all said earlier, the more experienced you become, the more knowledgeable you become, the faster you become, you're shorting yourself, income.
And as you started moving over to value pricing, what are some of the things that you've done to help with this transition?
As in for my firm or for my clients?
So what are some of the things that you put in place to start to move into value pricing?
Yeah, how did you get there? You were doing hours and fixed,
yeah.
And how did you transition?
Yeah, we were doing hours and fixed, and I knew something had to change because I was basically at max capacity, working 7 days a week, 10, 12 hours a day, and not seeing my revenues change. And I knew something had to change. And that's when I reached out to Loren and I started working with her back in February. And I think the biggest thing was she made me understand not only that the value that I bring to the client and conveying that to the client, so that the client also saw the value that I was bringing to them. And then I should be pricing on my value and not on the transactions that I'm providing.
As you were making that shift in what you were focused on regarding value, were there any hurdles that you felt you had to work through?
The biggest hurdle in my mind was the pricing. The value pricing is probably about 3 times what I would normally have charged a client. So I had to get over that obstacle in my own mind, and Loren was instrumental in doing that for me. And once I got over that obstacle, I was able to accurately and with confidence to portray that value pricing to the client or the potential client. And every new potential client that we've had has turned into a client, and not a single one of them has questioned or asked for a discount of our value pricing.
Plus, I think we found a couple new streams of revenue for things you were giving away for free. You didn't even know that you could charge for, and that you're now bringing in income for something that you were previously doing for free, right?
Yeah, we were doing diagnostics for free. We no longer do them for free. We charge for those. The advantage to that is it's another revenue stream, and it gives you a look at the client's books before you put together that value pricing for the client.
And Karen, as you know, I love it when you reveal the numbers. Can you give me an example of a client that you maybe have brought on with value pricing, what you would have charged them and what they're paying you now?
Well, another revenue stream that we brought in addition to the diagnostics is once we do the diagnostics, as you know, especially with trust clients, there's usually going to be some cleanup work. And I would say we probably tripled our revenues even on the cleanup work, where I just took on a big cleanup project that before working with Loren, I probably would have done it on an hourly basis, and it maybe would have netted us around $3,000 to $4,000. We quoted the cleanup at $12,000 based on value pricing, and I was literally shaking in my boots when I hit that enter button and sent that price to him. And his only response was, "I'm good with the price. I just want to know if it's fair to you," and happily paid our price.
And I'm going to pause you. I'm going to pause this for a second. I think this is really important. Karen essentially upped her game and said, "This is my value." And it's almost you're devalued. Almost look like from a lawyer's perspective, if you charge too little, they almost see you, it's almost disqualifying, saying, "Oh, well, then they're not that sophisticated. They probably may not be a good fit for me." And that lawyer has truthfully, at the end of the day, no price sensitivity at these price points. I mean, Lynn and I have been in some conversations with law firms, and sometimes when you get the numbers get really big, especially for onboarding, that can be a little tough. But if they understand where you can get them, they are not sensitive to price, but they have to see the value and the competency and trust that you can get them there. And I think that's really important. I've shared those same feelings. I mean, when I hit the onboarding fee, the same thing, Karen, with that large client of ours, and I still think I'm undercharging, but we're way more than we were before. So I just think it's important to recognize that the law firm wants to see an equal. They want to see an equal when they hire a service provider, and pricing is one indicator.
Yeah. No, I agree with that.
I mean, a lawyer.
And it's a process. It's not like we talked about, "Oh, Karen, go ahead and value price this tomorrow," and bam, you just went and did it on your own. It is definitely a process.
Oh, it was a process. It took me a couple months to get there.
Well, the thing is that how long have you been thinking about it, though?
About 2 years.
Okay, so you were able to achieve in a couple months, because we just started working together, I think in February or so.
February.
Yeah, and I think it's important. I don't want to make this a plug for Loren, but it's important that, like LeanLaw right now as an example, is we're trying to learn how to operate our company better. And I have 2 cohorts, Gary Allen and Fred Willerup, and we know we can't do this on our own. Right? We know we can get a third. We're talking about operating the company, so it's not the same thing, but it's similar. We know that we can't facilitate this on our own and make the progress that we want to make. And so we're going to hire a facilitator to help us work through and implement this and deal with the emotional side, the tactical side, and also have the discipline. And I think that one point is as you make these investments about wanting to grow your business, finding the right people to help you facilitate that is really critical. Loren is awesome and has shown great success in that relationship. And I'm not, again, trying to make this an exclusive plug to say go hire Loren. What I'm saying is that—
But you could.
Yeah, but you're welcome to, and you should. But the point I'm making, is Karen made this investment, and I'm sure she was a little intimidated to make this investment in this person. And she had to have a bit of trust and know that Loren had the competency to go through that in the same way that the lawyer firm was to you. But she probably would have gone another 2 years if she didn't just plant the flag and say, "I'm going to engage and commit to this." I don't know if I'm right, Karen, but I would imagine you would have waffled along further and sort of chipped away at it, but never really made the progress you wanted unless you did engage a third-party person. Is that a fair statement?
That's completely accurate. You know, we would have just, you know, it would have been status quo. I've been overworking myself, being underpaid and getting nowhere. And,
Yeah.
you know, my plan was not only to increase my revenues, but to grow my practice. And I've already done that. We're hiring additional staff. We're taking on several new clients a month. So, I mean, it's just been phenomenal.
Yeah, and it's
And,
very,
and I think you're getting rid of some of your headache clients too, right?
Yes, I am.
yeah, which goes into all these sort of webinars we had like that. That was our last, believe that was the last or two webinars. So I just think it's important because, you know, that's one of the things that LeanLaw has done in the last year is that we've upgraded our outside professionals that help us do the things that we don't do. And some of that is intellectual capacity, you know, bringing in more intellectual capacity to the firm. Some of that is just being accountable and committing to it. Oh, now that we've hired this accounting firm, we need to go through the process of upgrading our best practices, right? And some of it is just like, okay, we've made the investment, now we're going to do it. And I really just encourage the group that, you know, it's very difficult to do this all on your own. You can get there iteratively and make progress, but engaging someone like Loren to help you structure that and push it over and commit to it will accelerate it and most definitely put you in a better place to get the outcome you want.
And Karen, I just want to say I appreciate you sharing some of those numbers, what some of your journey is. Anything else that you just wanted to add in that maybe we didn't ask you?
No, I just think it's about, you've got to understand your value before the client's going to understand the value in yourself. And you've got to be able to convey that.
I want to.
That's what Loren was able to do for me.
Thank you
so much, Karen.
Yeah, Natasha asked a question and I want to get to it before we end. And she asked the question, what are the major values to a law firm when it comes to the services they get from a bookkeeper? I hear reporting, understand their industry, fixing their pain points, any others? So, I'm going to start because I can speak to it from my side, but number one, it's facilitating the full life cycle of the full financial life cycle of a client. So that's one value, that you can help them from the onboarding all the way through, making sure that they can invoice that time, they can collect that time, and they can account for that time from a financial perspective. So that's one big piece of it. And the reporting is not just reporting. Reporting gets into through the lens of the firm, which can be a P&L and balance sheet. It can be from the partner. So the partner can have reporting. So there might be a full P&L on the partner, but then they're also looking at realization on the partner. You're looking at productivity on that partner. You're looking at good clients versus bad clients. So reporting is not just about P&L and balance sheet. So there's the firm, there's the partner, and then there's the staff. How are we utilizing the staff and overhead? So reporting is a complex one. It's really critical. And there's sort of the blocking, tackling first phases of it, and then there's longer term things that you can do once you get in there. I think the third value is about compliance with trust accounting. So there's the mechanics of trust accounting, but the value is that the law firm is compliant, right? So they can go to the bar association and they can say, hey, I'm doing my three-way reconciliation on a monthly basis. I am handling my funds in an appropriate way. So there's the how you do it. Hey, we do trust accounting, but the value is really the compliance piece. And so helping that law firm understand profitability. So those are the big three that I would do, is that I talk about, is just the mechanics of the life cycle of the client. And with that comes, better realization and better collections, switching to electronic payments to increase realizations, switching to retainer models to sort of mitigate collections, looking at bad practice areas, meaning they're not profitable. So there's lots of different things about profitability there. I know I didn't answer that concisely, but those are some things there. We're at 1, Loren. This was a great conversation. So go ahead, Loren, you just put up a post, so let's finish it off.
Yeah, I just want to say, if anybody is interested in having a further conversation with me, you've been thinking about being able to increase your revenues and get back some of your personal life, I put aside for, path to profit strategy sessions. It's an opportunity for us to just talk together and see what's going on in your practice and how this might work for you. And the link would be businesssuccesssolution.com/let's talk.
And she's got a link in there right there. And I just linked our next session will be July 8th. So happy pre-4th of July to you. And it's Boost Your Revenues. The title is Boost Your Revenues Through Advisory Services. And this is our 4th of 5 in our series together. Loren, thank you for this collaboration, this partnership, and this conversation. Thank you all to this community of people who are part of our world and advocate on our behalf and learn and share with us. And for attending today, we're very grateful for it. So I wish you the best, Loren. I wish you the best to all the group, and look forward to talking to you in the weeks to come.